Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Sean.
And we watch movies.
Lots.
Yeah, lots. Let's not put a number on it because it is shameful.
I don't think it's shameful. It's just high.
It's very high. And here's proof. So first of all, happy Pride Month, everyone.
Yeah, happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month. The sad thing about Pride Month is it has largely been canceled.
Yeah, it's hard to have a Pride Parade with COVID-19 happening.
It would be, yes. So, but a lot of Pride events happen in our city. I mean, we live in a city of festivals.
The capital of Canada.
Yeah, also the world capital of festivals.
Yeah.
It is nuts what happens in our city.
Never stops.
It never does. And Pride really is a whole month long worth of all kinds of activities, from concerts and mixers and drag events and, of course, the parade down Bank Street. When Bank Street is open, it's been under construction.
They ripped it up for like 4 straight years, so
yeah.
It's been a while.
So anyways, all of these events are canceled due to stupid COVID-19, which is really sad. Not just because Pride is a happy time, but for many young queer folk, like your first Pride is often a big deal and a rite of passage. And during this time of quarantine, a lot of young queer people have had to quarantine with parents who maybe do not approve of this, of their identity or whatever the case is, and so they're being forced back in the closet.
It's a good point that I don't think is really talked about as much as it needs to be. Mm-hmm. This is one of the big downsides of what we're doing, and obviously we're doing it for a good reason, but I hope and wish there are more resources for people who are going through these hard times as a result of the isolation.
That's right. So for a lot of young queer people who maybe do not have supportive families, moving away to college means you get to choose your own family, perhaps live openly for the first time, and most campuses are going to have a pretty good support system, a pretty strong network of whatever sort of meets they have these days. I'm sure it has evolved since I was young.
Yeah, and that wasn't that long ago.
And it wasn't, yeah. But things are going
Things have changed very fast.
Rate.
Very fast.
Yes.
It was, little fires everywhere we were talking about recently, of how that seems very realistic as to what the 90s were like, and also horrifying.
Yeah.
That it was only a little over 20 years ago that it was a terrible time to be a gay person, and that was not as bad as it had been before that.
Yes. And for a lot of people, it's not as good as some of the progress we see on TV.
Yeah.
So it can be a hard time, and all of those meetup events and support systems are canceled. And even a lot of people, if they have moved the events online, home may not be a safe place to access those kinds of things on the family computer.
Yeah.
So yes, it is a tough Pride Month. But we celebrate it the way we know how, which is by
movies.
Watching some wonderful LGBTQ++ movies. So I'm going to say I've picked things that might be a little under the radar. Because of course, everybody who wanted to saw Call Me By Your Name. I don't need to tell you about Love, Simon. One that I am still astounded by to this day is called Paris is Burning.
Which I have not seen. I've only heard it referred to as a legendary.
That's right. So if you love RuPaul's Drag Race half as much as we do.
Even a quarter as much.
Yeah, that's right. We do like it a lot.
It's great.
It's the only reality TV we watch. And drag has evolved like crazy since its early days.
Yep.
And of course, drag queens were often at the forefront of all of the protests and the pride. They have often been the symbol and the organizers.
It is a real symbol. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And now it's gone mainstream, thanks to Rupaul. It is in the mainstream, and now it is a crazy art form. And there's a lot of emphasis on very expensive outfits and wigs and makeup, and it's really, it's changed since its early days.
Yeah.
So Paris is Burning is a documentary that shows the real roots of drag when there were a lot of houses, which still exist to some extent today, where you have a chosen drag family, your drag sisters. Perhaps there's a mother, the one who's been doing it a long time and is experienced, and so they had drag balls. So this is where extravaganza comes from. And, they could be dance-offs, fashion shows. It was a really crazy, wonderful time when, of course, being gay was largely still an underground thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we don't think of it the same today, but for a lot of those people, this was their family, because you couldn't be out to your own. A lot of them were probably totally disconnected from families or thrown out. And so this was really a place where, maybe the only place where you could really express who you were comfortably, safely. Well, maybe not always safely either.
Not always safely, but
there
I think
were raids and stuff.
But that was the safest spot that these people generally had at the time.
Yes. So Paris is Burning is really a time capsule for that really wonderful time for the drag community. And I think everyone should watch it. Everyone should know that it's history, because it's really interesting. It's really wonderful. And you can see so many filaments of that even in drag today.
And that's always cool. I would like to see this one when we have a chance. When we're looking for something.
One of those days when we don't have any movies to watch.
And I always do like to see that, if you look back and then you compare it to the modern, and you can see
where
the
it
heritage.
comes from. Yeah, that's cool. So, okay, God's Own Country.
We just watched this very recently. It's on Netflix.
Yes. Just a couple of years old now. So it stars Josh O'Connor, who you may know as
Prince Charles from The Crown, which you'll recognize immediately if you watch that show, and you may not be able to place him. I certainly couldn't.
Yeah, the ears should be a giveaway, though.
It's true.
So he plays a farmer, a sort of rural, kind of isolated family farm where he is the only family member who can do any sort of labor. His father is disabled, and then he has a grandmother who is the age of a grandmother.
Yeah.
She's
so
an
she
old
wouldn't
lady.
be working.
So he's the only one doing all this
back-breaking labor.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
He's working up real hard.
He's working real hard.
Yes.
Cleaning
and
up after
his
the
family
cows.
is so grateful.
No,
they're not.
They're not.
They're pretty terrible to him. They treat him very badly.
Yeah.
So it is amazing that he stays. Possibly because he doesn't really feel he has a lot of options. I don't think he was a kid who did well in school or looks beyond the farm for much. But it is clearly also not a happy existence for him.
Yeah.
How do we know this, Sean?
Because he's sad.
Yeah, because he escapes to the town every night.
And gets hammered.
And spends the little time he has to himself getting extremely drunk and having quick and casual encounters in the bar's bathroom. So it's really, and then, he rolls back onto the farm basically when it's time to get up and start milking. And that's his whole life.
It's very sad. Yeah.
Until they hire a handsome Romanian guy to help during lambing season. So it goes Brokeback. It goes super Brokeback from there. I mean, it starts Brokeback and stays Brokeback. Although, I thought I was being uncharitable comparing them, but they have a similar theme in the, you know, rural agriculture kind of world.
Yeah, and the loneliness and the isolation.
Yes, yeah.
It is a good comparison, a fair one, I think.
Okay, thank you, dear. Anyways, check it out. It's definitely, you know, the less glossy version of Call Me By Your Name.
Oh yeah, there's so much mud
know.
and all sorts of other gross stuff. That,
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the fields and like hanging out with sheep all day.
Literally.
Yeah.
That is not a euphemism. Okay, so Carol.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember where we saw Carol?
Sure do. It was at the Whistler Film Festival.
That's right. So that is in British Columbia, the West Coast province of Canada.
And if you want to go to a film festival, there's not much better setting for it than Whistler, BC. It's beautiful out there.
It is, yes. So Carol is set in, I think, the 1950s. A woman goes to the perfume counter and meets the shop girl. So this is Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, who, boy, I think well, at least the young lady is pretty caught off guard by this attraction. Possibly she didn't even know it was possible. But they do have this sort of intense magnetic pull towards each other. But this is not a time where that kind of thing was allowed. And one little hiccup, Carol is married. Married with children. And that really is the big factor in all of this, because her husband sort of manipulates her behavior by threatening the kids, by threatening to take away the kids. And that was certainly a very valid threat that could easily lose her children.
Absolutely.
So how do you choose between your baby and yeah, so it's but beautifully shot by Todd Haynes, very well acted, and a very good story.
Yeah, it's really good, and as you said, I mean, it's remarkable to look at.
A Tangerine. Did you see this one, or did I see this on my own?
I did.
Okay. So before the Florida project, Sean Baker shot a movie on an iPhone. This is that movie. So it stars Mia Taylor. She is a wonderful actress who was just discovered. I don't know if it was actually at the donut time, but just on the streets of LA. She was a sex worker, I believe, and plays one in the movie.
For sure, I've seen this, by the way, when you mentioned the donut time.
Okay, yes, it is kind of a big deal in the movie. So her best friend gets out of jail. She's been there a month for prostitution. And she has to tell her best friend, look, your boyfriend / pimp has been unfaithful while you were gone. So they just go on this great tear through Los Angeles with revenge in their hearts. And I think the movie was groundbreaking, not just for the iPhone filming, but for casting a transgender actress in a lead role, an unknown one, and for how, you know, fantastically the whole thing turned out. It's
amazing. I remember now that you say that, having heard about it being shot on the iPhone, you would not know. Like, this is a very, very, it's an indie movie, so it's not going to look like $100 million blockbuster.
It was made for $100,000.
It's crazy. It looks good. It is a professionally done film.
That's right. Well, the Duplass brothers told this guy, anytime you want a micro budget, we'll throw it at you, and he took it, and he is very deservedly, got a career out of it.
Rightly so, absolutely.
Yes. So this one is shocking, I think, maybe to make the list, but Philadelphia. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to put it on there because it is old enough, and I'm sorry about that, Sean, but it is old enough that a lot of young queer people maybe weren't even born when it came out, so maybe you missed it.
It's true. That's mid-90s.
That's right. So, of course, the AIDS crisis in the late 80s It started like 5 years before that, guys, but...
Yeah, let's just pretend that...
Yeah. That was a very defining moment for the gay community because, of course, the disease was painted as the gay disease and even the gay plague and even the punishment God sent to gay people for being gay.
It is unbelievable looking back on what was the propaganda around AIDS.
Yeah. Then we all had a red face because guess what? It's not just gay people who can get it. It was anyone. Can. That's right. But it was devastating the gay communities, and it was a very difficult time in many ways. But like we were talking with Paris Burning, a lot of, at the time and still today sometimes, families outright reject their children for being gay, which is insane. Of all the reasons.
Yeah.
Anyways, it is hard for us to imagine that sort of mindset, but it did exist. It was rampant then. It still does today.
It's just pushed back, thankfully. And I mean, I think, I think we're going to say, the AIDS crisis is really an amazing time to see the gay community come together. Mm-hmm. And we would not be where we are today on AIDS if not for the activism, and it helped everyone.
That's the thing. They saved themselves, which is sad, but nobody was invested. Nobody wanted to even talk about AIDS. No one was investing it. And the gay community really was able to rally together, even though it was ravaging their numbers. I'm sure in the big cities, not one gay person didn't know somebody who had died from this. Like it really, like a forest fire ripped through many gay communities. So they certainly are responsible. The whole world owes them a debt of gratitude for pushing it to the forefront, and not just for looking at drugs and getting it recognized and having specialized care, but for understanding what this disease even was, for naming it, for trying to treat it and taking the stigma away from it.
Yeah, and learning how it's transmitted.
Yeah.
Because that was why it was spreading so badly, is because it was a complete mystery.
Yes, absolutely. And this movie in particular is Tom Hanks plays the man who has AIDS. Denzel Washington plays his lawyer, who is struggling with his own personal beliefs towards people's sexual orientation. Yes. But he's fighting because Tom Hanks's partner, played by Antonio Banderas, legally had no right to be by his side in the hospital. And this was the really tragic thing in a whole litany of very tragic things. But
that's a preventable one. That's an easily correctable one.
Yes. Was that a lot of, say, Tom Hanks's mother, his character's mother, would not allow Antonio Banderas to have any say. He had no say in the hospital. He wasn't next of kin. And so, parents would come in and shamefully take the corpse away to bury in another state, and people were being denied their grief. Whole communities, that's the thing, not just the partners, but the whole community wants to say goodbye to their friend and their chosen family member, and they're denied that. They don't, that was so difficult. So they go to court over that. But, there's a ticking time bomb there. They are really under pressure.
Racing against the clock.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's an amazing movie.
It is.
I think good for you for putting on this list, because it is something that everyone should see. I mean, gay or straight or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is a great movie, and it also has all of these social issues that gives you another overview of where we have been not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. And I think that by casting, the two sort of leading men of their time, Denzel and Tom Hanks as the face of AIDS, really brought in a wider audience and put a face, even if it wasn't a real one, to what this disease really meant. And I think being, America's sweetheart as Tom Hanks is, it was a safe way to look at this, and Denzel let us feel uncomfortable when we needed to. But I think it was one of those sort of a milestone marker for the rest of us, for the non-gay community, to be on board and explore it,
It went
in a
mainstream.
non-threatening way. Yes.
It absolutely did. It's at the Oscars. It's got the song by Bruce Springsteen that you can probably still think of if you've ever seen this movie once. It really did break through and have that conversation go wide.
Yeah. Okay, so this, I believe, Sean, we saw very early on together at the Bytown, one of our favorite indie theaters here in Ottawa. A Single Man.
Oh yeah. Yes,
so
we did.
I think this is Colin Firth at his very best.
Oh, he's amazing. I mean, he carries this movie.
Yes. This is Tom Ford's directorial debut.
Who I didn't even know who Tom Ford was at the time.
I certainly did, though.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised that he thought he could direct a movie, and then I was very, very surprised that he was
He's
right.
awesome. Yeah.
And in fact, he's gotten better as he's gone along, but he had a very strong beginning. So Colin Firth, again, this is a period piece. He has recently lost his partner of like 16 years, played by Matthew Good. And once again, so his partner died in a car accident. Once again, he is denied the right to grieve for his husband. Although he's not also allowed to call him his husband. But
he
hello,
is.
16 years together. So he has had to keep all of this bottled up. And it is too much. He is very depressed. He can't get out of his grief because he's not allowed to express it. And so he decides to die. He makes a plan to commit suicide. So we follow him on his last day to see, what are the last things that he wants to do. And meanwhile, he is remembering his relationship and everything that made it special. So we do spend quite a lot of time with Matthew Good as well. And so it is a nice rosy look back at the relationship, but then in the context of him ending it because he can't fathom going on without him, and he's not even allowed to show that he's sad about it.
Well, that's a really, I think, the heartbreaking thing. Is again, he's being denied something that everyone else, who are all straight people, take for granted. That you can mourn your spouse and, be recognized as the someone who suffered that loss.
Yeah. So other people. It's a bad name. I bet you won't remember what it is.
No.
But it stars Jesse Plemons as a young man who was cast out of his parents' home because he is gay. So he's gone off to, I'll say New York City, I'm not even positive that that's where it is. It doesn't matter. He is trying to be a writer. But his mother is diagnosed with cancer. So he comes home to take care of her. The mother played by Molly Shannon. It's really tough because his religious family has ostracized him, has cut off all ties. He comes back because they need him as a carer. But he is losing his mother. They know she's going to die. Can they make up? Like that's a huge deal. I think especially, when families reject their own children, and then eventually your parents die and you've never had the chance to have any closure around it.
Yeah.
And here's the chance, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
It's really hard. So that's a really good one. I don't even really like Molly Shannon, but I still really liked this movie.
So that tells you
That's
it's a
something.
good movie.
Yes.
That's a good mark.
So another one that we saw at Toronto International Film Festival, Closet Monster,
Oh yeah.
directed by Stephen Dunn, starring Connor Jessup as, a teenager, a young man in Newfoundland, I think, small town Canada.
Small
we'll
town
say.
Eastern Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he is realizing that he's gay, and he is experimenting, he's finding his identity, he's trying things out. But as a child, he witnessed a hate crime. So he's having flashbacks that obviously make him very conflicted. To have witnessed that kind of crime against somebody who is just like you, wow, that's a hard coming out. That's a really hard coming out. So there's a lot of turmoil and inner conflict there. And a talking hamster.
Oh yeah.
Just to make things even more special. Voiced by Isabella Rossellini.
That's right. Yes, I was trying to think of who that was.
That's who it was.
Yep.
So an under the radar little movie that.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Canadian movie that got some well-deserved attention at TIFF.
Mm-hmm. Another Canadian movie for you. I Killed My Mother.
Oh,
Xavier Dolan.
Yeah.
That's right. So he's got a few that could be on this list. I really like Laurence anyways as well. This one is about a 16-year-old gay teenager who is having a hard time with that mother of his, who is not really a grown-up herself. I think she had him really young. She's not a very good mother. She doesn't always think of her kid first, and her kid is kind of repelled by her and the corny way she dresses and all her tchotchkes and stuff. But it's also clear that he kind of needs her, and she's kind of trying, but they're just butting heads. And I think it's a really interesting time in his life because he is coming to terms with who he is, and then he's got this mother issue that's going on in his life. So there's a lot to work out. Some of it may be a little bit intertwined, but I think it's a very good film by an interesting director who's maybe been a little bit hit or miss lately. I think he's more consistent in the time before he had any budget.
Before he got big.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
He does have a lot of stuff as a very young filmmaker.
Yes, he does. I don't know if you saw this one. I saw it at South by Southwest. It was called Signature Move.
I have not seen this.
Okay. So this is about a Pakistani American lawyer. She is an immigration lawyer. When her father died, her mother moved in with her. Her mother doesn't know that, number one, she's learning wrestling. She is
and pro wrestling, right?
Yeah. She is a lady wrestler. Number two, she is a lesbian. So she kind of has to closet her relationship because her mother lives with her now. So that has really changed the dynamic with her partner. They were having their own life, their own love story, and suddenly with the mother is here, now the girlfriend is out. And for somebody, she's not closeted, and now she has to live that way again, which is a very difficult thing to ask anyone to do. Whew.
Yeah. And
then, of course, there's a culture clash. And I remember being really struck when she tells her girlfriend, in our culture, mothers and daughters are not friends. They just can't talk to each other that way. And so she didn't even have the vocabulary to open this conversation up with her mother. So, it's really interesting because she is first generation. She has grown up in a world where this stuff exists and lots of people are okay with it. But her mother is still of a tradition where she doesn't want anything to change. And they're both not going to be very good at communicating. So this is definitely a wonderful piece of queer cinema, but it's also about the immigrant experience, a culture clash, a generational gap. It's a very interesting movie that is a smaller independent piece of cinema that you may not have seen. So one that got a little more attention because of its cast is Beginners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Christopher Plummer plays an old man.
As he does, yeah.
The father of Ewan McGregor in the film. And Christopher Plummer's wife has just died in the movie, and not very long after he is widowed, he comes out as gay, which shocks his son.
Understandably.
Understandably. He's been married for 60 years. his wife is dead, and it turns out he's just been waiting all this time to, and very quickly kind of starts dating and getting into the life, which again is hard on the son who's grieving his mother and feels like his father's behavior is not very grief-stricken. Although I just want to say to everyone, grief is grief. There's no right way to do it. There is no set time on anything. And being happy with a new person doesn't mean you're not sad about losing the other one. But Ewan McGregor struggles to see that. He's having his own relationship issues. And now he feels like he has to like support this 88-year-old man who is basically a baby gay. Like, this is his first toe in the water, but instead he dives right in.
You have to at 88, though.
You do. You gotta make up for lost time. That's right. So, I mean, it's kind of just exciting that he even feels he can.
Yeah, I think that's nice.
It is a nice movie, I think. A Boy Erased, a less nice movie.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Lucas Hedges plays a gay teenager whose religious, disapproving parents, played by Russell Crowe and Nicole Kidman, but they send him away to conversion camp. They're going to pray the gay away. What a lot of religious parents seem not to have understood is that when you send all of the gay boys
to the same place,
a sleepaway camp, it's not the best place to eradicate the gay. It's reinforcing the gay, which didn't even need reinforcing because that's just how we were born. And guess what? You could maybe convince them, shame them enough, guilt them enough to live a lie for a little while at least, but you're not going to turn anyone. But some people have not gotten that message, and
well, some people still haven't gotten it. I was reading earlier this week, and I mean, Canada, we think we're good, but then Derek Sloan, running for the leader of the Conservative Party, is now opposing a proposed ban on conversion therapy. Like, there's no yes or no on this.
No.
Conversion therapy is torture.
Yes. And quite literally, not just like, obviously a spiritual affront to your identity, but also literally torture. Like the things they do to these kids. I mean, obviously they have to just invent stuff because it doesn't really exist, but they do some really cruel things in the name of conversion. So that was I think a pretty good film.
Yeah, I didn't see this one.
Okay,
you saw it by yourself, but you told me about it at the time. I remember. It's a very tough film, but also very well done. Yeah. I mean, Lucas Hedges, that guy is very consistent. He's done a lot of good stuff.
He's been prolific. You know, people, everyone has wanted to work with him. So, Disobedience. Oof, this is another one. Rachel McAdams and Rachel Weisz are a couple of lesbians, as you might guess. That's the general theme today. But they're also Orthodox Jews. And so the thing about that is they are incompatible because you cannot act on those urges and be an Orthodox Jew. So Rachel McAdams gets excommunicated. She gets thrown out of the community and I think is living a better life outside of the community. But Rachel Weisz, her character doesn't want to abandon her beliefs, her family, everyone she's ever known, her home. So she stays and marries and has kids. But then I think there's a funeral that happens that Rachel McAdams comes back for. And yeah, that's pretty intense. Because there's some bad blood between them. Since they took different paths. Yeah. There's certainly a lot of talking, gossiping going around. And yeah, it's just really kind of sad to, especially when we're comparing them, just to see what repression or suppression does to somebody. Because even though she didn't think she could live without these other things, she's still lost something. Either way, it's a loss. And
yeah, I mean, it's very sad anytime someone is forced to make this sort of choice.
Yep.
Shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't have to say that.
Right. Okay, so one more Canadian one we'll end with today. It's called Giant Little Ones. Have you seen it?
I don't think
I saw it at TIFF. So Josh Wiggins plays a teenage boy again. He has this excellent childhood, lifelong friend. So they're planning his 16th birthday. And he's hoping to convince his girlfriend to have a sleepover with him for the first time. And his friend is like, oh yeah, you gotta go all the way. Me and my girlfriend do it 6 times a day. But the birthday party doesn't go quite as he would have liked. So the girlfriend leaves, and it's just him and his friend at the end of the night, who kind of, is consoling him and blah, blah, blah. And then there's a blowjob. So cut to the next morning, when Josh Wiggins' character is like, whoa, did not see that coming. That's new. Okay. And the friend wakes up with sort of a much more negative view of things. So of course it's tearing their friendship apart. And since they're both on the swim team together, the swim team, which we already know, showers together and shaves together, etc., the friend is going to make a big disruption in his life. But what I really loved about this film is how Josh Wiggins' character wakes up and kind of just goes, okay, that's a thing. That's a new part that I didn't know that was maybe out there for me. And he really he's fine with whatever. I think he has a little bit of trouble because his parents have recently separated because his dad has come out as gay. Kyle MacLachlan and Maria Bello are his parents. Kyle MacLachlan left his wife and came out as gay. So it's kind of a bad time to be discovering something in yourself too. But I really liked that we even can be that person now who just is like, yep, that's fine, that's part of me, maybe not all, I don't know if it'll happen again, but I'm okay with it. Whereas his friend was not there. So there is still a spectrum of everything, right? A spectrum of sexuality and a spectrum of the internalized confusion and hate we might have and the gut reaction and the defense. So I thought this was a really interesting exploration, especially to see how kids are right now today.
Yeah, that
the
sounds
times
good.
are changing.
The times are changing,
yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And more change, the better.
That's right. So, everything is a spectrum.
Oh, well, let's end with that.
Mm-hmm. Everything is a rainbow.
Yeah, happy Pride.
Happy Pride, guys.